Throughout TGIF Part 1, there is a plethora of hidden messages, symbolism, semiotics, and other references within the episode. In this video, I'm going to count down all of them, as well as include some other hidden secrets about the project. First thing very prominent, particularly in the intro, is the imagery of cherry blossom. Cherry blossom connotes to an idea of springtime and sort of rebirth, as well as new beginnings. TGIF does indeed take place in springtime. I'm not entirely sure when the original play actually takes place. I don't think it's really specified. However, I'm guessing winter due to the fact most of it takes place at night time, which would allow for longer nights. Also, note the soundtrack used in the intro is actually from the Primavera section of Carmina Burana, which also links into springtime. Some symbolism toward the end of the intro. We obviously have Macduff carrying a Scottish flag, symbolic of how he carried it in its most direst time. The next one's a bit more literal. It is Don getting chased by a tomato, obviously foreshadowing a later scene in the production. This next one's really interesting. This links in with an idea of dance with the person who hurt you the most. If you think about it, they definitely hurt each other the most. The title image, we have the cherry blossom imagery again, as well as the scroll, which is the letter from Act 1, Scene 5 in the play. They met me in the day of success and I have learnt via the perfectest report. That letter from whence everything went wrong, from whence Macbeth sent that letter. The rainbow imagery present in the background, also seen in the previous image, is symbolic of rebirth and calm after the storm, but if you interpret it as LGBT symbolism, then you definitely can. If the first illustration of Macduff looks familiar, it's actually heavily inspired by this image I drew of Centurion last summer. This was for Chapter 4, Tailspins.
Stabbed in the nape by the blade of a tyrant.
Reference to the start of the play where Macbeth is described as unseeming MacDonald, the enemy, from the knave to the chaps. Lady Gruash. This is Lucille, originally written to be a basic attendant for Malcolm, but when I found out I'd be voicing her, I decided to make her a bit more interesting. She is an all-original character of mine, however, I'm not going to reveal too much about her just yet, but if it helps, she is inspired a little bit by Eva Smith from An Inspector Calls. Their voice is also a mix of my Sophia the First impression with my Marinette impression. On the topic of character voices, Gruach, her voice is sort of an extension of my own, except slightly more, ugh, you're such a stick in the mud. 'Tis the eye of childhood that fears a painted devil. And if you listen closely, I actually give her a tiny bit of a Scottish accent to resemble the Scottish setting of the play. For example, instead of saying afraid, she says, afraid? Malcolm's voice is just my Centurion voice, and Don's voice is an alteration of my Centurion voice. Well, if it isn't the tyrant's fiend-like queen. Direct reference to a final scene in the play where Malcolm refers to Macbeth as this dead butcher and his fiend-like queen. Also note the OC cameos on the tapestries, so we have my OC on the left, Marzi, and Kanyanta's OC on the right. Some more references within the tapestries. We have the Scottish flag and the English flag, representative of Scotland and England's unity to overcome Macbeth. The Union Jack wouldn't have existed just yet at the time the play was set. This tapestry may look like a bus seat pattern at first, but it's actually inspired by Among Us. In the walls of Macduff's castle, we have a few references. So the painting of Macduff's family, where he remains undamaged, is obviously representative of their fate. In the top left, we have Romance Writer 1. Unicorns are the national animal of Scotland, so I thought her OC would be fitting. And in the bottom right, we obviously have a biblical reference to the crucifixion. Biblical references were very prominent in the play. She literally had a servant named Satan, only spelled differently. That is true, they did have an attendant named Satan. Some people pronounce it as Seaton, although I think the joke might have went over their heads a bit. I'm not your partner. If you listen to this line closely, really closely, with headphones, you will hear my cat purring. In Malcolm's castle, we have the halls decked with lavender. Lavender helps with sleep, which counters Macbeth's sleep no more imagery.
Hey! It's the traitors!
Oh, fiddlesticks! Run! Fiddlesticks isn't usually used to express annoyance, as it literally just translates to nonsense. However, her line was originally just run, but it didn't sound right, so I added a 2-syllable expression at the start of it. I suppose fiddlesticks kind of works, since she sort of disagrees with the fact of being a traitor.
Double, double toil and trouble.
This is the witch's incantation from the first play. Many say that Lady Macbeth is witch-like with the unsex me here scene, so I'm guessing she would recognise the witch's incantation. Back at Macduff's castle for lunch, we are having grapes, some sort of meat, and some sort of bread bun. I see these 3 foods quite common in medieval cuisine, however, if they're not a common combination, it makes sense for a castle that's just been sieged. Also note the spilt tomato, very prominent scene resembling the aftermath of Duncan's murder. Couple OC cameos in the kitchen, so we have Marzi and Triple H. I have some craft I need to finish. Craft is code word for forgiveness plan B, because the first one didn't work. Remember this line? You're not even tangible. Yeah, that one didn't age very well, did it? Macbeth's tangibility is definitely directly proportional to her guilt.
Catholic? You're hardly even Protestant anymore.
Catholic and Protestant are 2 types of Christianity. In Shakespearean England, there was conflict between Catholic and Protestant. Shakespeare was Protestant, so many speculate many of his characters would have been Protestant as well. If a murderer confesses to a priest, their secret is protected by Catholic law. The irony is, though, they're Protestant. However, she then goes on to say that she doesn't have a creed anymore. Basically saying that she's an atheist now.
Hadn't you not been part of the plan?
The soundtrack you're hearing now is I Still Love You from the visual novel Doki Doki Literature Club. This soundtrack plays around about the time when the player deletes Monica's character file and then Monica realises the fault in her ways. But despite this, she still confesses her feelings for the player. Hence the title, I Still Love You. How does this link into TGIF? Well, does Gruach still love Macbeth? Deep down, yes. But she accepts the fact that they can no longer be together. For a start, he's dead, and she realises how their paths and worlds collide. She's seen the light, he hasn't. She also knows that the Thane of Glamis that she loved is no longer there because of how she changed him forever due to the way she manipulated him. It's not him that she hates, it's her past self that she hates, and because she sees her past self reflected in him, that is why she hates him so much. But deep down, she still loves his past self. But she's willing to accept that he's gone forever. Macbeth also only uses her for vengeance, so he literally doesn't even care about her anyway. Gruach has also already mentally pledged her love to someone else. If you pay close attention to her interactions with other characters, you will be able to work out who it is. I'm not going to say who it is yet, but she is bisexual. Anyone noticed how she looks a little tired in this scene? Somnambulous guilt, anyone? Look like the serpent, but be the innocent flower above it. This is a quote from the original play, but in reverse. Got a couple of references in The Witch's Lair. Firstly, Alicia's cat, Grey Malkin, is actually voiced by my cat, Scoop. We also have some other cameos in the background, such as a painting of Hamlet and Ophelia, some scrolls containing spells and illustrations of Phoenix Feather and Flutterpaws, aka the voice actors for the witches. Who knows, maybe it's a spell for giving a horse wings, and adjacent to that we actually have the book from Magical Mystery Cure. Further into the lair we have more cameos such as Romance Writer 1 and his sister's OC, Coco Aura. We can also see how many people recognise the principal from Hope's Peak Academy on the shelf. That's me in the corner, pea pods on Alicia's shelf. On this bookshelf, though it's a little difficult to see, there are actually references to other Shakespeare plays. So from right to left we have The Winter's Tale, Much Ado About Nothing, The Tempest, The Twelfth Night, A Midsummer Night's Dream, All's Well That Ends Well, As You Like It, and Measure for Measure. Now there's something all these plays have in common, and that is that they are all comedies. Macbeth is actually a tragedy, so it's sort of a metaphor that comedy is only fiction in a world of tragedy.
Or is your courage screwed to the sticking place?
Direct reference to a quote from the original play, which is when Lady Macbeth tells Macbeth to screw his courage to the sticking place and they wouldn't fail the murder. For the love of Sycorax! Sycorax is a character mentioned in The Tempest. Sycorax is Caliban's mother, and she is actually a witch. The diamond that Gruach gives to Don is in fact the same diamond that Duncan gave to her. This is referenced in the quote that Banquo says when he's explaining to Macbeth, "This diamond he greets your wife withal." Originally I thought it was a metaphor, but apparently Duncan actually did give her a massive diamond because diamonds are supposed to ward off evil, which is the irony in that statement. So I decided to make the diamond come full circle. Hecate, or Hecate, is the Greek goddess of witchcraft. She does make an appearance in the original play, however many speculate that that scene wasn't actually written by Shakespeare and it was actually added in at a later time. However, I loved her so much in the play, so I just had to include her here. And this concludes the references and hidden secrets in TGIF Part 1. Of course, this isn't all of them because there is countless interpretations of multiple things, but this is the majority that I could find. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you all for Part 2.